The top of our agenda is steeped in the events of preliminary final weekend, where the winning was spectacular and the losing was devastating, and it does deliver us a dream grand final pairing.
This is when you truly feel alive as a player. It's the ultimate weekend of footy because of the jubilation and the devastation waiting on the other side.
Cracker, steals and goals. The Demons have got 4. And they are on a roll.
It's been built off the back of pressure. It has been enormous, but it's just been relentless from Melbourne, one after another after another.
Norton flies. Well, Port, they're suddenly shell-shocked. The Dogs have come out firing. Maxi!
Oh, what about that? Was Stevie J like from Max Gord? You've never seen him do that ever before.
Snapping ball, the Bonds.
Net the Bonds. What a goal!
They've got 5 unanswered, the Bulldogs. They're ripping the Adelaide Oval apart early in this one. Well, I guess you get used to expecting the unexpected in this game. But not even those that were true believers saw this. Unbelievable scenes here at the Adelaide Oval.
That's as good as I've seen a Melbourne Footy Club play ever. It's a standard that I haven't seen for a long time.
The ghosts of the past seem to have disappeared. This really feels different. This feels like Melbourne's time. A hell of a win for the Demons.
Yeah, I'm ecstatic for this group. It means so much to the supporters, it means so much to everyone back in Melbourne that are doing it tough.
Unbelievable performance, and one more to go, and hopefully give you guys plenty more to smile about in the coming weeks.
We felt a bit of responsibility to come here and do something and give ourselves the best chance in 2 weeks' time.
They've just restored all the pride to the Melbourne Footy Club brand, and they've got one more big step to go. It was just a surreal sort of a night.
It's the underdogs, undermanned and on the road.
Outside the grand finals, this is the best win the club has ever had. And ever.
It will be a grand final for the dreamers, for the romantics, for the nostalgic. The full genius of Luke Beveridge inspires the Bulldogs to a date with destiny.
We're just wrapped with the way we went about it tonight. It's just, so surreal. If you had asked me at about 18 years old that I was going to be playing in a grand final in 10 years' time, I said no way.
Honestly, I can't believe it. It's surreal.
They found a way tonight when the footy world said they couldn't.
It's a big journey for everyone. Just to get a look at another grand final is incredible.
Proud's definitely probably the key word to describe it.
The Bulldogs go through to the grand final. They meet the Demons, and we're in for one hell of a game.
What a night to find that sort of a sense of freedom and vigour in our play. It was, I'm just so moved by what the players did, and very, very grateful once again.
Yep, it's been a long time since we've won. We've got ourselves an opportunity and we're looking forward to going after it.
So, we've reached the end of the path. Just one result waiting.
The coursing emotions of the preliminary finals. My contribution to 2020 hindsight, Jace, my only regret is I wasn't clever enough to think of it last week, is just to re-examine the ladder positions of these two teams and restore in our minds that they were the two best teams of the year. So after round 2, the only two teams to hold first place were Melbourne and the Bulldogs.
Correct. And if you look at the Bulldogs, I mean, round 1 and round 23 were the only anomalies, weren't they? Other than that, they were top 4 all year, if not top 2. So what it tells us is probably the best two teams have made the grand final.
That's it.
And you're right, we didn't drill down deep enough in the lead up to that game to say, oh, they're more than just a chance in this game. In fact, they should probably start favourites.
Yep. Melbourne 13 weeks on top, the Bulldogs 8 weeks on top, monopolised it after round 2. So I went to bed like most on Friday night, I think, content that I'd seen the best footy of the year.
Yep.
And no matter what happens, the D's would be hot favourites come the grand final. So that was true for 24 hours, I felt. The Melbourne performance was just electrifying.
It was, and the hard part about it, Gerard, is not getting carried away with what you see over the course of a couple of hours. As you say, I was the same. I'm sitting there going, oh, they're just going to win the flag. But then it's a different scenario in a couple of weeks' time, and they're facing a different opposition. Now, Geelong just didn't fire a shot. Melbourne jumped them, and then it was all over. And that's why it was such a comprehensive performance from Melbourne's perspective. What I love the most about the D's, as good as Max Gawn was, and as good as Petrarca was, every single player played a role. Everyone did their part. And to me, that's as important as anything in the game.
So they're dialed in about as well as a team can be at this time of year, aren't they?
They're getting contributions across the board. Everyone's snipping in with a goal here or a couple of goals there or a couple of great defensive acts. What about the start that Ben Brown had in the game?
Yeah.
He looked like he was going to tear it apart. And whilst he faded as the game went on, what it did do was set the tone early for the D's, got the confidence of his teammates up, and it was just the perfect little booster to get this thing kick-started.
So your system means a lot at this time of year, and you have to have star power, and they have star power. You've recounted the deeds of Max Gawn. Viney had his best game for a long time, I think, and Petrarca was every bit that player that's sort of been forecast all year, that he could be the separator come one of these big finals.
Yeah, and we're fortunate that we've got what we think are the two best teams playing the grand final, with fit teams, fit players. The stars aren't missing. So that would have been the horror of a matchup if a team got through and one of their best players wasn't there. That's not the case. So we get to see the best players on the biggest stage under the most intense pressure to see exactly what they can do for us.
So what did you think when Stephen May grabbed his hamstring and left the field? You're thinking, there's the story of the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, now this is a really interesting discussion. So you can just see him feels it there, and his reaction tells you, well, I haven't torn it, but there's a little tightness there. So what I found fascinating, Gerard, was then he comes off, goes down the rooms, they have the discussions, they tape it up. Not sure strapping does a hell of a lot for a hamstring, but hey, whatever works. And then he came back on.
Yes.
So that to me says, well, it's not torn. We think it's just tightness, but we probably want to see which way it might go because we have got a grand final coming up. So can you actually... Because they didn't need him out there. There's no doubt that they could have taken him off earlier. But I think it was a little journey of discovery just to see exactly what was going on with the hammy and whether it would be good to stand up in a couple of weeks' time. In the end, they thought, OK, it's not getting worse, but it's not disappearing, so we'll take him off. And then we think we've got a couple of weeks where we can probably have it ready to go on grand final day. But I thought it was fascinating the way they brought him back out there and sort of almost experimented with how it was going to go under pressure.
It's such a good depiction of it. This is the nervous Nellies, and I was wondering, get him off, get it.
But then if you get him straight off,
the whole 2 weeks wondering, and he probably would have as well. So it was really clever.
Yeah.
Between coach and player and medical staff.
All I will say though is, I don't think he had to slip himself at any stage once he went back on. He just swept. He didn't really play on the big matchup. He just sort of got through the game, if that makes sense. So, but I agree. At least there'll be a little bit more confidence that in a couple of weeks' time, he'll be okay.
More and more in footy, we talk about the intersection of family and profession, and that could never be more true than with Nathan Jones, who once he'd seen the team played and they got through with a clean bill of health, knew that he wasn't going to be part of the 23. So this is sort of his farewell to Melbourne, knowing that there's the opportunity and the responsibility to come home and be with his wife when the twins are born. I have a hunch he actually only just made it home in time. That's yet to be fully announced. And your heart bleeds for him on a few fronts. So on a family front, this is the most joyful time. And on his football journey, he has lived every excruciating day, it feels like, since the Norm Smith curse was cast. And, well, he won't play at the end of it. He's not even going to be there at the end of it. He's going to be watching from afar with the family that he serves.
I think the great joy that he's going to experience with family softens the blow of what's actually happening. And I'm glad that's the case because we're talking about one of the great servants of the Melbourne Football Club. But one of the harshest realities of football is you don't always get what you deserve. And he deserves to be a part of this because he's contributed and hung in there and helped build the standards and the culture, but he's not going to be a part of it. So he'll be there in spirit, but the harsh reality is, and everyone will say, you're a big part of it, mate, he won't have the premiership medal should they be successful, and it will feel like... it'll be agony to a guy that's given his all over 300 games. But, as we said, the flip side of that is the joy that he's going to have with a growing family, hopefully, will fill that void.
So he swooned over Melbourne for 24 hours, and then we saw the Western Bulldogs. And that is as good a finals performance as I can think of, given all the circumstances and just how destructive they were. I felt during Saturday, if I could ever be in one pre-match to hear a coach speak the truth with his play, that was the one I would have chosen, because the circumstances are such, and I think Luke Beveridge is a spiritual coach. There was so much raw material for him to work with. How would he intertwine it? What would he weave for them that would send them out? So the start didn't shock me. The magnitude of it did, but the start didn't. The fact that he endured the whole game. And he's lived this journey with them once before, inspiring them each step of the way, and he's reprising it in different circumstances.
I love Bevo, and I love the way the Bulldogs have actually handled this. So every challenge or every hurdle they've had to overcome, they've used as a spur. They've sort of not just accepted it, but actually cherished it and said, let's just all suck this up and go, and it's just one more notch on the belt. So they have to go down to Tasmania to play, they go to Brisbane to play. When they wanted to train, they weren't allowed to. They go to Adelaide, you know, they're staying in their room all day, and no joy from the South Australian government, but they get the job done against a hostile crowd. Now they go to Perth, which will be another challenge. So it feels like they've been on the road for just about ever. But they get stronger with each leg of that journey. So the impressive nature of it was, I agree, it means we've got a great grand final coming. But the start, I wasn't prepared for that. I wasn't prepared for a team to go bang, 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 as though there's only one team out there playing.
So we got a little glimpse in this modern world. You get more glimpses than you typically would behind closed doors of what the celebrations and the choice of song, and there are beers in this moment, which is so reassuring, I must say. But that collective sense of mission that they experience, it wouldn't half surprise me if Amit Baines had rung up Smirk and said, you couldn't put us in quarantine for an extra week, could you? Because this is fueling us magnificently.
Do you know what, Gerard? I absolutely love seeing this. This, to me, is so much better than seeing the players rehydrating, recovering, you know, eating the right diet. Enjoy the victory. Enjoy the moment. Yes, you've got 2 weeks to focus on what's coming ahead, but this night, the night that you've just played an extraordinary performance and won a prelim, needs to be recognised and enjoyed. And to see them there having a couple of beers and just singing and chanting, I reckon that's brilliant. The players will take that as something that they will cherish for a long, long time.